Hello again, everybody. Still getting my microphone ready. Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I am coming back at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. And today we are doing our Wargaming Wednesday, which is our live stream where we work on different projects and also talk about different projects, talk about the news, talk about just whatever comes to mind. Sometimes we show off models, sometimes we talk about rule sets, just whatever comes to mind, really. It's not, I do not have a script. I do have a plan. That's odd, but I do today, where these are all Napoleonic models here. We got some 28 millimeter models. These guys are for a commission that I'm working on for a customer, and these are my personal 15 millimeter French. I opened 2 bags. Okay. I had some breakfast still in my mouth. Okay. I opened 2 bags of Old Glory thinking that I was going to need 1 bag per battalion, and then of about 24 figures. That's what I was aiming for. And so I opened 2 bags, and then lo and behold, I had 4 battalions worth. So there's almost 100 models there. The limiting factor was the standard bearers and drummers, and there were enough. There were 4 standard bearers, 4 drummers, 4 officers, 4 NCOs. There was like 6 elite, or maybe there's 8 elite per battalion, and then the rest. So basically, I was able to make 24 figures per battalion. Okay, so as you might or might not know, I am currently in the middle of writing my own Napoleonic set of rules. Right? I've let me do a little adjustment here to my way everything's laid out. There we go. That actually puts the chat from the stream on my center. So if I'm looking at the camera here, my chat is like right there. So it's in my eyesight. It's in my peripheral vision. Okay. Okay, as you know, I'm probably... as you know, let me back up. I am writing my own set of rules. Okay, let me just give you guys a heads up. If you guys are new to the stream, sometimes I'll go off camera or whatever to do some business or to do some work or grab a miniature or something like that. So if I get up and walk off the camera, don't be alarmed. I didn't abandon you guys. But right now, just so you know, I have just freshly brewed some tea, and I got my tea bag here. And no, it's not a defeated enemy that I'm teabagging. It is an actual drink. Okay, and let me get that tea bag out of my drink. And trash. There we go. Mouse, get out of the way. There we go. The mouse, man, it has a mind of its own. I'm gonna have to name it. Okay, give me a second. I am sweetening my tea because I like sweet tea. I do not like tea that has no sugar in it. I'm weird like that. I think it's a southern thing. I don't know. That's what they say. But, okay, so I've got some, my mind is scatterbrained right now. I'm going to be all over the place. So just try to keep up. try to filter out all my nonsense, you know, while we talk today. These are going to be French. There's 20 models there. And these guys are going to be Swiss. There's 16 models here. My customer does not want me to base these. He wants to base them himself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint them up and then we'll get them out to him. Okay, so I figured since I'm going to be painting French anyway, why not gather up some French and paint some French 15s at the same time, you know, because I like mass production. But I don't want to slow down. I don't want to slow down this gentleman's French to accommodate my own personal desire to paint some French. So if I notice that this is starting to slow me down from completing these, then I'm just going to push these off to the side and not work on them until I get done with these. But one thing I was thinking about last night was flags, right? I have every flag that I'm going to need in 15 millimeter in from GMB. I even have some flags that I'm not going to need from GMB as well, because all these Allied flags, like the British and the Dutch Belgians and stuff like that, I don't think I need. Well, I think I've only got a couple of British flags in here anyway. I don't think I have Dutch Belgians. I do have some Hanover, but I don't need them. I ordered them mainly to get a 15 millimeter scale from GMB, and I ordered French and the Allied, and then once I also ordered some Fighting 15. I don't know if you've heard of them, but Fighting 15, they make divisional flag sheets, so you can order a specific division like Picton's division or whatever, and they will give you every flag in Picton's division on that one sheet, right? So they'll give you all the British, all the Hanover, you know, if there's any other allies, like if I ordered Kilmanseg's brigade or Kemp or Pack or whatever, all of those flags are in there. So, and they're good looking flags, right? So I ordered all the Allied flags, the Brunswick, the Nassau, the who else? The Dutch Belgians. I ordered all of those flags from Fighting 15. So I've got all my Allied flags in that. I did not like Fighting 15's French flags. The French are done in a different way. They're done by, they have like flag sheet 1, flag sheet 2, flag sheet 3, right? And then in those flag sheets, you have regimental flags, you know? But those regimental flags say something like, this flag could be for the 4th, the 7th, the 8th, and the 33rd. you know, or something like that. And so if I was doing the 8th Regiment, I would cut that flag out and use it, right? Well, the reason why that is because, and I understand, the backside of the flag has the battle awards, the battle, I want to say battle rating, but that's not right. The battle, I guess the battle awards or certificates or whatever they call them, where they go to a specific battle and they participate. They get participation awards, and then they get that battle listed on their regimental flag. Well, certain regiments were at a certain combination of battles, so the backs would be different, right? And he takes all the, Fighting 15 does, they take all of the regiments with the same back and say that this flag could be any of those. The problem with that is the front side of the flag. The front side of the flag should say something like 8th Regiment, or 8th Line, or 7th Light, or 4th Line, or whatever, right? Whatever regiment, it's supposed to be on the front side. Well, what Fighting 15 does is they go, line. Light, right? And so there's a number there, but if you take your magnifying glass out and you zoom in and you really look, it's blurry. So you can't really identify the number, right? So at 15 millimeter, that's probably okay. That's I mean, you're not really going to ever see the regimental number on a 15 millimeter flag. Wrong. Okay, so I go to my GMB 15s, right? And I pull out a, okay, hold on. Let me find, a French flag. Okay, 100th line, 4th, okay, 92nd and 93rd line, 1st Brigade, 100 and 4th Ligure, 2nd Brigade. So there's my 1st and 2nd Brigade. And then down here it says Foy's 9th Division. And then it's got 2nd Battalion Fanions, right? So I was saying, well, they look good. I mean, they're laser printed or whatever. But when you take your magnifying glass and you look, it says 100. Wait. I'm looking at the wrong one. I was like, why doesn't that say 100? Okay. Okay, that's reversed. But guess what? At least I could read it. That says 4th, and this says 100, even though the wording up here says 100 and 4th. It's reversed. So that's the 4th Ligure, and that is the 100th Ligne, which is line, you know. And so yes, you can read it on the flags. And so GMB, you got my French vote. Fighting 15, you got my British or Allied vote. I still have quite a few GMB British. Like this is Tita's 2nd KGL Brigade, 3rd Division. It's got the 73rd, the 5th KGL, and the 8th KGL. I could still use these and not use the Fighting 15s, but I found that on the Allied side, the flags seem to be more accurate. From the research that I've done, Fighting 15s, like British flags, match all my research, where GMB's British flags match, like some of their flags are hypotheticals. Specifically, their Hanover flags. Their Hanover flags are all hypotheticals. And I didn't want that. I wanted specifics. Okay, that's hot. Okay, that's good though. Okay, still working with flags. I got a brass rod right here. This is, I don't know where I got this brass rod, but it is super long. It is over 10 centimeters long. That's ginormous. I have some Warlord 80 millimeter pikes, which I do believe have the same thickness and composition as this bad boy. And then I've got these 50 millimeter spears, right? I also have a bunch of Battlefront spear posts, but the Battlefront spear posts are way too thick. They're great for 28s, and that's what they were built for. But for 15s, they're just way too thick. And I also have a bunch of these little snippets of brass spears and junk, like that guy, right? These are some of my remnants that are already cut, because I took some of those 80 millimeter pikes and I cut them down to 50 millimeters for some 28 millimeter flag posts, right? But what I was thinking, this is me experimenting, okay, that's kind of a perfect size for a flag. I might need to cut just a fraction off. But that's why I got the flags out, because I wanted to make sure that I'm going to have enough pole, if that makes sense, for the actual flag. This has got a good 10 millimeters more than I need, probably. Yeah, this is like 35 millimeters. I was thinking I was only going to need 30 millimeters, but it's probably, yeah. I don't know if I want to attach this flag or not. I don't see, I'm struggling internally whether or not I want to take my snippers and snip that flag post out of his hand. I mean, it's already a beautiful flag post. Why destroy something that's already beautiful? You know what I'm saying? It's just the fact that it's soft metal, it's pewter, it's going to be flexible. It'll be less flexible once I put the flag on there. And if I put the flag on there nice and tight, that paper flag will strengthen the post itself. But the problem that, and I had this with 28s, I might not have that problem with 15s, but the problem I had with the 28s was right where the hand ends and the post begins. That's a soft point, or a point that, like the hand. Okay, you got the flag post, and you got the hand right there where that flag post meets the hand. That's where it can bend relatively easy, and if you constantly do this, it'll eventually break off, right? So, and that won't happen with these brass flag posts. And also, all of these all of these standard bearers have eagles at the top, which that's okay because I'm going to make all of these 1st Battalion. That's not going to be a problem. But when I start making my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th battalions, they're not supposed to have eagles. They're supposed to have just spears. Now, what I could do is just snip the eagle off so there's no, just snap and save the eagle for some future project. Because I was thinking that I could, okay, this pole is actually a little bit thicker than that pole. So if that's a 2 mil, this is probably a 2.5 or maybe 3 mil. Yeah, that's a guess on that. I don't have a what do they call it? A caliper to measure that. So I think that flagpole was going to work. So this flagpole would definitely work. Now, the issue I have is I have a pin vise. Once I snip it off of his hand, I could just take a pin vise and drill down into his hand, and I don't have to go all the way down to his flag rest, or whatever they call that thing, the thing that the flagpole like sticks in. I don't have to go all the way down to that. I could just stick it in a little bit. That's what I said to her. But because these flagpoles are exactly the same thickness, it looks like. But I'm afraid I'm going to damage the model because it's 15 millimeter. It's so small. With the 28 millimeters, I didn't have a problem snipping the hand, drilling a hole through the hand, putting a flagpole in there. I had no problem doing that. Okay, that guy's the same. And not all of these flag bearers, standard bearers, are the same. Like this flag post is pretty much molded into the side of his head. I would have to snip it all the way down to his shoulder, and then I would have to snip it file it off, cut it off, all the way down to his hand, because he's holding it up with the post resting on his shoulder. I don't know if I would be able to do that. Now, part of the problem is I probably need to get in there and cut between the head and the post anyway, because I got to put a flag inside there. And that's why I got the flags out to measure to see how much space they actually take up. Okay, so if I hypothetically did that, would I really be able to cut it all the way down? I don't know. I don't want to ruin them. Okay, and out of the 4 standard bearers right here, out of the 4 standard bearers, there's 2 designs. There's one where he's holding it up with his hand in the rest, and then another one where he's holding it. Well, I guess his hand is right about where the rest is, and then it's laying across his shoulder. And I see there's 2 patterns like that. I spent a lot of time last night. There we go. I took a lot of time last night trimming these, cleaning the bases, the bottoms of them, that is. Cleaning the figure, straightening up their barrels, getting their flagpoles positioned, you know, any flash or any mold lines on their helmets, you know, all that stuff. It took me pretty much, not all night, but I started pretty late. So I started around 7 or so, and finished cleaning them and getting them put on these sticks probably around midnight. And this guy said, "Oh, I don't want you to put any flags. I'll do that myself." Well, guess what? There are no standard bearers. You didn't give me any standard bearers. I'm going to respect this guy's wishes. He wants me to, like, paint this up as a generic French. Okay, so basically I'm just going to paint him up like every French soldier, and I'm not going to really I'm not going to look up different regiments and see if their pom-poms or whatever had a special color combination or whatever, because some of the lights and grenadiers did. He gave me almost all elites in this pack, and then and it's a mixture of Perry and Victrix. I don't see any Old Glory in these. Same with these. They're Perry and Victrix. He assembled them and then sent them to me. And I don't want to assume, okay? I don't want to misrepresent anybody. But because he sent these, excuse me, I got a like hiccup. He sent these to me over a month ago, and I've been working on a World War II commission, and you probably have seen it. Some Rangers I just finished. I painted over like 500 Rangers or something like that. It was a lot of Rangers. Maybe not 500, maybe 200, but still, it seemed like it was 500. But and so that project's complete. So that's good. So I decided to move on to this gentleman's project, and because I have these projects in a queue, and it's like first come first serve kind of deal. And these guys, when I got them, they needed a lot of work. I mean, and I'm here for it. I'm here for that. I'm just saying that the gentleman that cut these off the sprue, I think he might have probably not owned an X-Acto knife or a sharp knife, or this is kind of what I'm thinking, his hand's not steady enough to cut with an X-Acto knife, because he might cut himself or whatever. Because these guys all had burrs on them. There was a ton of burrs. There was a ton of mold lines. And I'm thinking, okay, good. Well, that's why you sent them to me, so I can take care of that, right? So I was going through there, cleaning them, and you know, the bottoms of their bases still had sprues. You know, you got to cut them off so that eventually this guy's going to be able to get them onto some bases. But one of the guys, this is really what stood out to me. Almost every one of these is elite. So I have a feeling that these guys were either left over from a previous project of his, or he specifically went out and got the elite pack, or most likely he didn't know, right? So I'm going to paint these, well, the ones that are, as elites, which they are going to be generic French, but like the guys with the bearskin caps, they're going to be painted grenadiers. The guys with the super tall plumes, well, shoot, pretty much everybody else, pretty much everyone else is going to be painted Voltigeur. Mainly because almost every one of these have epaulets. There is a guy there and there. I think there's 2 or 3 guys that don't have epaulets. Okay, maybe him too. And I'm going to paint them as one of the company guys, right? I'm going to try not to overbalance it, like more grenadiers versus less grenadiers. This guy, this model right here, has a rifle in his hands. But I don't think he was supposed to be, because I personally have Victrix and Perry models. I don't think this model was supposed to be a guy with a musket. It's nice that he like thinking outside the box and everything, but I think that guy's supposed to be an officer. So mistakes were made, is what I'm just trying to say. And specifically what brought my attention to all this was one of the guys only has one epaulet and the other one's not an epaulet. So you would normally think that that would be an officer, but it's not an officer's uniform. So I think he just took an elite arm and put it on one side and a non-elite arm and put it on the other side. And that could just be a mistake. I mean, I've made mistakes like that before too, so I can empathize. But my point is, it was, I don't know. Like, this officer is definitely good to go. He's got the epaulet on one arm, he's got a sword on the other arm, and he's got the officer uniform on. The standard bearer's got the standard bearer uniform on. He doesn't have a standard. He's just got his hands like this, which you can't see on the camera, but they're basically just like this. And I assume he's going to drill it out and put a standard pole like I'm doing in there. Okay, so I've made a decision for today. I am not going to cut these. I want to so bad to cut these open and put flagpoles in there. I just can't bring myself to do it. Okay, where's that extra piece? There it is. Because I don't want to damage them. If I get to a position where I get to a point where, okay, where do I want to put this? Just so I can get it out of the way. Yeah, if I get to a point where I need to cut it, or I want to take that gamble, I'll do that, but I'm not there right now because it already comes with a 15 millimeter flagpole. Why do I want to, why do I want to damage it when it's already pre-built into it? Yeah. And these guys are all greatcoat guys as well, because I'm planning on building them up for Quatre Bras and Waterloo and Ligny and what's that other one? Valmy or whatever. The whole 100 Days campaign. But I'm focusing on Quatre Bras right now. Okay, so let me go ahead and do this. Like I said, I might get up and leave the camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prime these guys And while they're being primed, I'm going to let you enjoy some music. No, I don't. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm going to step outside. I prime outside because of the fresh air and the heat. In June, you know, we get some pretty hot Junes in Tennessee, and it helps bake the paint down onto the miniatures. So what I'm going to do is prime all these outside. Once they're all primed, I might come back and forth to get paint, but once they're primed, then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about my rules a little bit. I'm still working on it. That's way down the line. I've gone through 3 different rule sets in my head. I've already made changes. Like I'll type something up. I understand these movies or these TV shows where it shows a writer typing something up and then pulling it out of the typewriter, wadding it up, and throwing it in the trash. Well, luckily I'm doing that digitally. It's a Google Doc. You know, it's easy enough to edit it. So I type it up, and a couple of weeks later, I go, you know what? I got a better idea. Let's do it this way. Then I go in and change it, right? And then a couple of weeks later, I go, that was horrible. You know, I got this third idea. Let's try it. And I type it up. And so I don't know what iteration I'm on, but I've got to a certain point where I want to base them a specific way. And I pretty much have that set in stone. So I know how I want to base them. And we're going to talk about that. I'll pull some bases out and I'll show you here. They're not finished. They're just wood bases. I'm going to put them out and I'm going to show you kind of like how I plan to do casualties, formations, and etc. like that. So bear with me. If someone hey Reg. Oh, like line and light. Yeah. It's probably trying to close caption it into English. No, it's probably assuming that I am saying an English word because in my broadcast, I said this broadcast was in English. Right? So it's probably thinking that I'm trying to say an English word and trying to figure out what it is and translating it into an English word. Even though I'm speaking that foreigner language. Okay, so bear with me. I'll be right back. I'm not going anywhere, really. I'm just getting some primer. Where are my primers? Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear me from a million miles away, but that's one primer. That's not what I've decided that's not what I'm going to prime my greatcoat guys in, even though that'll work just fine. These French and Swiss are definitely getting the white because that's going to make those, well, the pants mainly. And the Swiss have white jackets with like red lapels, but they've got like white pants. The straps and stuff like that, I'm just going to paint over the blue because I plan to just paint the jackets blue and then go with the stripes and the lapels white afterwards. Actually, I might not paint the lapels white. I might just leave the primer on there, or blue. I don't know. But these guys, since they're all in greatcoats, I was going to get like a tan-ish color, like maybe a khaki or some such. Let's see what I got. Got some camouflage khaki. I got some German. I got some American. What do I got? I don't know. I got all kinds of primers over here. Like a desert sand might actually be a good camouflage. Desert yellow? Yeah, maybe. Bone. Well. English uniform? Ooh, that might actually be a really good color for... I don't want to use gray. Great coat gray. I think I'm going to use English uniform. There's dead flesh. Hang on, that dead flesh. Ooh, this dead flesh looks really good as a potential greatcoat color. Okay. That's maroon, khaki. I don't think I want to do that. Okay, so let me come around. So this English uniform, right? I considered spraying them with that. It looks like it's just a little too dark, especially since I'm going to be putting a wash on them as well, and it's going to darken it down even more. It's probably a good color. US khaki is probably like a khaki spray is probably a good color as well. But I was looking at this guy right here. This, it looks a little bright. But I can test it on one maybe. But I think that'll work. I think it'll work well, because once I put the wash on it, it's going to darken that up and dirty it up, like brown it up. And this is called dead flesh. I think I'm gonna do it. It's not gonna hurt anything. I mean, it's not like I don't have like 20,000 French to paint. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, if you use these paints or not. There we go. But they come with 2 nozzles. And one is a tight spray, and one is a very wide spray. I do believe the black one, okay. I don't really know this. I probably should go to the website and learn this. But they have a black and a white tip. I think the black tip is the narrow spray. And the white tip is the wide. Now, what's good about that is I use a lot of Vallejo's primers because I really like them a lot. And I saved the tips, right? because I don't know if you've ever used spray paint before. I know you have. But every now and then I'll use a paint and the paint nozzle will get clogged. And then when the paint nozzle gets clogged, you know, I try cleaning it and all kinds of stuff, and it never, for me, it just never really works. I never can get it to work the way it was when it was new. So it's good that Vallejo sends me 2 nozzles per can, because if one clogs, I can always swap out with the other one. But I will have to point out, I don't think any of my Vallejo nozzles have ever clogged. It's only been the Krylon and the Rust-Oleum ones. Okay, this is all going to be white, so white. Sorry you got to sit here and hear me shake these rattle cans. Let's do 2 at a time. Okay. So when you hear me say linea or liguer or what's a good one? Well, Fusilier, Grenadier, that should just come up as Grenadier, I would think. Epaulette. And let me step outside. I'll be back in just half a moment. Ooh, and it is nice and warm out. That's good. I'm back in. Okay, now that was just the first coat of the white on those guys. I usually go through and put a light coat on there to get it started, and then come back later and touch up all the spots that I missed. Literally missed, like misting. Okay, so let me get ready to prime these guys. You guys remember this board where I tested out my olive drab paints? If you haven't seen that video, I recommend it. I learned quite a bit about different olive colored paints. I know that I was expecting certain results because of the my previous experience. But when I actually put it to the test, I actually learned a little bit about olive drabs. And if you're curious how I mounted these models onto these popsicle sticks, I used 3M double-sided tape. I found the 3M double-sided... Okay, here we go. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. I found that the 3M double-sided tape is not that expensive. It really isn't, and it sped up my painting process like tenfold. I used to put a drop of Elmer's glue on a popsicle stick and then stick the model on and wait for it to dry before I would take the popsicle stick out to paint. And then when it was painted and everything was finished, and I would have to pop the models off of the Elmer's glue, which is not that big of a deal. And then I would have these popsicle sticks with Elmer's glue residue. So either I would have to throw them away or take the time to clean them to make them flat popsicle sticks again. Okay, give me a second, taking these outside. I'm just going to test a little bit to see if I like what I like. And I'll let you know. Alright, I tested the dead flesh, and I really like the way it turned out. It's not exactly desert yellow. It looks like it's almost desert yellow, but it has kind of a little bit of a greenish tint to it. So imagine a desert yellow with a slight green tint. There we go. All right, so that should be enough time for my white to, I can put a second coat on. Just give me a second. All right, the white second coat is on. Okay, let me put that away. But it still has to dry. I'm probably going to give it another 10 minutes or so outside in the heat to dry. Yeah, see, that looks a lot like desert yellow, but it's got a very slight green tint to it. Very slight, just enough to be noticeable. But I actually like that for my French greatcoats. Sometimes I've actually used green paint. Specifically, I've used this color, which is like Mage Hunter green. I've used that for greatcoats. I've even used maybe I've used Trader Green as well, but I have used quite a few greens in the past. I've used like a really dark tan as well. What is that called? Motley ochre. I've used that for greatcoats. I've used rucksack tan for greatcoats. And of course I've used gray as well. But the French greatcoats were specifically in 1815, they weren't really very uniform. There was a whole bunch of different varieties of colors. Okay, let me put my second coat on my 15s, and I'll be right back. And then we'll talk about basing. We're going to let those guys sit outside 10 or 15 minutes while they dry before I bring them in. I'm probably not going to start painting on them today. I mean, not on the video, that is. Oh, I didn't put this away. Okay. Okay, I'm grabbing some bases out of my base tray over here. All right, guys. Let's talk about basing. Okay, so you're probably going to get sick. Hopefully not, but you're probably going to get sick of me talking about my Napoleonic rules going forward for the next year or so. I've got my World War II project pretty much to a point where I can slow down now. I've got enough units to play. I've got a terrain map for the convention, and now I'm just basically adding on to my World War II collection. So that project, it's not complete. It'll never be complete, but it's to a point where I'm comfortable with it. My American War of Independence, my Ancients / Medievals, and my Napoleonics are not at a position where I'm comfortable with them. I decided, instead of working on my American War of Independence for this upcoming convention, or even the next convention, I thought to myself, if I don't do it now, when will I ever do it? So I've decided just to go ahead and buckle down and write my Napoleonic rules, and I believe, and I think that if I really put my mind to it, I can have it done to a playable state. Maybe not finished, but I'll have it at a playable state in less than a year, right? And then I can play test it, and then maybe run it at next year's NashCon. Not this year's. This year's NashCon's too soon. It's in August, and so there's no way. Plus, I'm not going to have any painted miniatures. I'll have a few, but not enough to do any kind of significant playtest. Okay, so these bases are 15 millimeter by 40 millimeter, right? 15 by 40s, and this is the exact same base that I use for my Ancients and Medievals for like my Romans and whatnot. Let me get them. So I just wanted to grab a collection of some Romans. Okay. So this is 2 maniples, or whatever you call it, of Romans. So I look at this, and just hypothetically. Whoa, is this in the way? This is in the way. We'll get that out of the way. There we go. Just hypothetically, imagine that these are Napoleonic figures, right? I know they're not, but just pretend. Pretend they're Napoleonic figures. Okay, you got your Nassau. Okay. So the question is that I say to myself, does that look good on the table? Would it look good as a deployed unit of Napoleonic figures? My answer to myself is yes. But that's not. How do I? Okay, so imagine this is in Napoleon's battles. Let's use that as an example. This would be 2 bases side by side, not front to back. This would be 2 bases side by side. This would be 2 bases side by side. And they would count that as an attack column, right? And then they would take these 2 bases and put them behind, like here, and they would call that a march column, right? So if I was to take all the figures and they were all facing this way, that would be a march column, which I'm okay with all that. But looking historically, the amount of table space for a 20 or a 3/4 inch by 1 inch base, that's perfectly fine. But when you're talking about a brigade of models, it works great. That's fine. But when you're talking, but I don't want to talk about a brigade. I want to talk about a battalion, right? So a battalion is actually wider than it is deep, right? Normally when it is deployed in column. So I've decided that, or I should say, I'm still in the process of deciding. As you know, I've got a time, but this is what I pretty much set my thought process on, is a base with 4 figures, 15 by 40. I did consider a 30 millimeter base and putting only 3 figures on it, right? I considered that, but I think that the 40 millimeter wide base is, and a 15 millimeter depth is not good, right? I'm going to need about a 30 millimeter depth and a 40 millimeter width. So that. Now I considered just using a single base with 6 to 8 figures on it, right? I considered 6 figures because that's the way Land of the Free does it. they do a 30 by 40, and then they put 2 ranks of 3 figures. For American War of Independence, I think that looks good. But Napoleonics, I think I need a little bit more. I need my units to be bigger, because American War of Independence was fought at a much smaller scale, right? Instead of grand tactical, it was only tactical. So I need to adjust, or I want to adjust the way it looks. So I considered like 3 or 4 bases, solid bases, like that, right? And then I was thinking to myself, that's not going to work. It would work, but it wouldn't allow me to do what I want to do with casualties. I want to be able to remove a base without removing a base, right? And I figured that 4 bases doesn't represent what I want it to represent. So I decided to go with the half bases, right? The 15 by 40s, just like my ancients. And instead of using a 4 base standard, I'm going to use a 6 base standard, right? 6 bases. But now, so I've increased the number of bases, but decreased the number of figures and the table space. That's another important thing. So I eliminated table space. And that's partially what I'm trying to do, is expand my battlefield. And by doing that, you reduce the figure scale, allowing your table to be a bigger area comparatively. Okay. Do you hear that? That's my stomach. Bear with me here. Hopefully that helps. Okay, so I've accomplished 2 things. I've increased, now I'm counting bases, not figures, right? I've increased the number of bases. I've decreased my workload by reducing the number of figures required and the cost of entry into this game, etc., right? So I've reduced that, but that really wasn't a consideration because I don't care about that. If a unit is 500 models, that's fine. I don't care. Customers might care, potential army builders might care, but that wasn't my prime consideration. Look at this. I got this extra loop. Yeah, this I had to put a Band-Aid on my thumb last night because as I was trimming those 15 millimeter Napoleonics, well, also the 28s, because I was working on the 28s as well. I dug into my thumb. The cost of being a professional. Okay, so, man, my stomach. What did I eat? What didn't I eat? I think my body's just getting caught up. Okay. Okay, so instead of doing 4 bases like that, right? Limiting what I can, and an even number of bases is what I kind of want to stick with to start, right? I think I want to stick with even numbers of bases, but I don't have, I'm not locked in on that yet. I'm not, that's not something that I'm debating that. So if I take that away and I make these half bases, what I've done now is I've increased my look of each battalion. Now this is going to be a battalion. Now 2 ranks. I'm considering this to be a line formation, right? That's a line formation. Not that. Okay, that is a single rank of soldiers, but what that winds up being is the same width as a 28 millimeter battalion. Depth, way smaller, but the width is what I'm concerned about. And I look at historically how big battalions were area-wise when they deployed in line formation. And it is not that big. Based on my 50 to 100 meter inches, that would be way too big. That's almost 10 inches, which is a kilometer, right? If you go with 100 meters, that's a kilometer. No, it's not going to be like that. Now I'm also I'm leaning towards 50 yards per inch, but I'm leaving that vague. You know, I'm probably not even going to mention it in the rules. It's up to the players, but 50 to 100 yards is what I'm kind of gambling with. Okay, so I consider this to be a line. Now, if you play black powder, and that's black powder is what I'm trying to not correct, because black powder is good on its own. What I'm trying to do is adjust or modify it to fit bigger battles. Okay, so because you could play this with black powder, right? I could use these bases as or battalions, because it doesn't matter about the number of figures, the number of bases. None of that matters in black powder, right? So it's really irrelevant. But their standard Warlord games, their standard unit is 24 figures. They're mounted in 2 ranks, and there's 6 bases. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases. Okay. This is exactly 1/2 the width of theirs, because they would have 40 by 40s with 2 figures on them, and they would be, you know, it'd be close to that. It'd be even deeper than that, but because it would be this deep. That's a black powder 6 base unit. That is my 6 base 15 millimeter unit. Okay, so that's going to be my standard unit right there. That's a standard unit. Now I might add 2 additional bases for a large unit, right? Like grenadiers or things that are like 800 plus men, you know. Or I might go 4 bases for like a small unit. And then I'm thinking that I'm going to do 2 bases for a tiny unit. That's what I'm thinking, 2 bases. And that's kind of the way, but that's still a sizable force, right, on the table. It's tiny. It would represent only maybe 2 companies, maybe 300 less men, right? This, maybe 200 men. And this is like 400, 500 men. And this is like 600 or 700 men. And this is like 8, 9, 1,000 men. So that's my thought process, is each base is approximately 100 men. Okay? Making each figure approximately 25 men. So you could, if you wanted, go through an army list, a real army list, and it says that there's 430 men in this battalion at this battle. Well, that tells you 4 bases, and you're good, right? That's 430 men. If it was 450, would I go with a 5th base? I don't know. This is what I'm not set on. Do I want to go with odd bases, base them on 100-man stands, do a rounding, like 450 would be 5 bases, and 440, 449 maybe, would be 449. I probably still would give you another base, but it's really up to the scenario designer, you know, how they want to go. But I'm thinking if it's lower, like 430, then I would not add another base. I just roll them into these bases, right? I don't want to put a hard fast number like 430. That's the break point, or 431. You know, you got to put an extra figure down. I don't necessarily want to do that. I want it to look good. So another thing is, if this is 400, I would probably leave it all the way up to just under 500. Because once you start going over 500, then I might do that. Or if you go over 400, maybe I would do that. And like this would be up to 400. This would be up to 600. You know, because like if it's 401, do that. I don't know if I want to put that odd base on there. I know it looks better on the battlefield if everything is dress right dress. But Black Powder does it that way, where they do everything dress right dress. Every standard battalion is exactly the same number of figures, the same number of bases, etc., etc. But because my rules, and I think I'm going to do this way, is going to cause casualties per figure, and once you lose 4 figures, you pull a base. Now, I have been thinking that I would pull bases based on a set number of casualties, and it could be 4, like every figure is a casualty, or it could be based on experience level, like an inexperienced troop, once they lose 2 figures, you lose a base. And then if you take 3 casualties, you take 2 off, which is a whole base, and then you put the extra one on another base. And if they lose 4 figures, then you would actually lose 2 bases. I'm thinking something like that. And then a regular unit would be 3, and then an elite unit would be 4. So, or a veteran unit. Like a veteran unit, once it takes 4 units, I mean, it could take a whole base before a base is removed. Where like regulars can only take 3 before a base is removed, and inexperienced would be 2. And I don't think I want to do anything like where you take 1 hit and you lose a base. So I'm thinking 3 categories, and maybe elite might be something a little bit better. Maybe they ignore the first casualty out of every attack, or something where it doesn't actually cause a casualty. If you only do 1, you do nothing. And then if you do 2, you actually mark it with 1. So elites have more of a more staying power. Or maybe not. Maybe I still give them the veteran wounds. We'll call it wounds. The veteran wounds, and then maybe their morale checks, elites will have a bonus on morale checks. That's what I'm thinking. So backing it up, if I take bases off as casualties, right, which is what I'm planning on doing, then it should be okay to start the battle with an odd number, because you're going to get odd numbers as the battle progresses, right? So as we're playing, I'm going to lose stands, and if I lose stands, then there's going to be an odd number of models on the table eventually. So why not just say that each stand is 100 men? And if you've got a 500-man battalion, you got 5 bases. Okay. So now I have to, if I'm going to allow odds, which I'm leaning towards yes, because of the casualty situation. If I was taking, let's back up. If I was not taking casualties off of bases, like black powder does not eliminate bases. If I was not taking base casualties, if I was only marking units with wounds, right, like little red markers on the back of the unit showing you how many wounds it has taken, if I was to do that, then I would go with an even number of bases every time, just like black powder does, because it just looks better. But if I'm going to whittle units away by taking casualties, then I need to, then I should allow odd base amounts, right? So that might be a standard battalion. 500 men, that's pretty much a standard battalion, right? So I've considered, there's another thing, I've considered changing the base quantity from 100 to like maybe 150. And if I did 150, that's 600 men, right? Because that's 300. That's 150. 300. That's 600 men. And a 600-man battalion is kind of your norm, right? But I think this, to be honest, I think that is too small to start. But it doesn't have to be, because wounds are going to bring it down to that. Possibly. I'm thinking that once you lose half your stands, the battalion's eliminated. Just pick it up. Or I could say when a battalion is reduced to less than half its stands. So I don't know. But this, okay, that's just something I'm working with. So I'm thinking 6 stands, and I'm thinking this would be an attack column, right? It's wider than it is deep, but it is still fairly square. I'm thinking this is a march column. It's obvious, one base after the other. And then 2 bases back to back is the line. So if I only had 4 bases, is that a line or is that a attack column? That's where I'm struggling. It's both. Or is that an attack column? Well, that's definitely a line. That's definitely march column, right? So I have to kind of figure out how I want to do formations. With 6 bases, I have no problem forming the attack column. Even with 5 bases, I have no problem forming an attack column. I could just center it up like that, right? And that would be my attack column. And then I could still do a march column. But then a line, am I going to put a single figure out here and then just take these 2 and kind of center it up like that? Yeah, that might be a line right there. Or better yet, do that because that's more historically accurate. So is that my line? I think so. It's actually kind of a, what do they call that? That's a mixed formation, right? So these are the things that my mind is thinking of, you know, when I'm laying in bed before I go to sleep. So I'm definitely, absolutely going with 4 figures on a 40mm base, 15mm depth, so 40 by 30 for a unit. 6. I might just go. That's the unit, and then yeah, I might do figure casualties, but not remove bases. Because if I do that, then it will allow for formation changes like that. Even though I've lost 8 guys, it would still show. There's also a way that I saw one guy do casualties that I thought was kind of ingenious. You only need 1 casualty marker per battalion, and you read from left to right. So if I put the casualty marker on him, that's 1 casualty. If I put it on him, that's 2 casualties. If I put it on him, that's 3 casualties, 4 casualties, right? So I could put 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? I could just move the marker from left to right as I take casualties. Um, I like that idea. I really like that idea. Uh, and we'll call it endurance or stamina or staying power or whatever you want to call it. That number uh, will be anywhere between 1 and 12, and probably 1 and 8, actually. I'll probably do 1 to 8. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but let's just say this French unit has a 8 staying power. Once you've taken the 8 casualties, the unit's eliminated, right? I want to do 50%. I really want to do 50% of any unit on the table. But I also want to eliminate stands. One reason why I want to eliminate stands is because I was thinking, this is what I was thinking, that I was going to give a firepower value based on how many stands you have remaining. So a 5-stand battalion would have maybe 5 dice on the attack, and maybe what I mean by that is shooting, and then but then I was thinking shooting should only be the front rank, even in a line. So, but in a line, I'm getting 3 dice, where if I was in a attack column, I would only be getting 2 dice. So there's an advantage to being in line, but I think I want that advantage to be slightly larger. So what I was thinking was 2 dice for the front rank. Well, 1 die for every stand in a line, so 6. So this would throw 6 dice against the enemy, where if you were in an attack column, I was thinking only the front rank would shoot, giving it 2 dice. So there was a much bigger difference between line and attack column. But I also don't want, I don't know. Haven't got that far. Still thinking about formations and bases and numbers of units and figures in a unit. And if I'm going to allow odds, or am I going to take bases off, or am I going to just mark casualties? Because if I just mark casualties and I don't remove bases, then I can always use an even number, right? And with a 4-base battalion, how do I get into attack column? Maybe I do something like that, because the 2 bases wide tell me that it's an attack column. Or maybe I just go with 6 bases per battalion, period, no matter what. But what about those small units? If I was to go, 2, 4, 6, 8, if I was to do that, then how does a small unit get into attack column? Or do I say they just can't do it? Or do they form up a march column and do I form up a march column and then just let my opponent know that I just formed an attack column and not a march column? Oh. Things to think about. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. I'm kind of thinking that's. I don't need to get the. I don't know why I brought these out, because I didn't realize I was going to pull my Romans out and kind of just show you my thought process. I thought I was just going to show you with bases. Now, if I'm not pulling individual stands off, then I could mount them 8 figures on a stand this size, right? But I mounted them like this so that I could split that base and make an attack column. So that was the reason why. So I don't know. Because I could do that if I didn't but that doesn't look good. Right? I don't like the triangular nature of that. I like the look of that. Now, if I had 8, I would just add 2 back there. Yeah, that's a pretty big line. But I like it. If I go with 8, then I should be able to just mount them on 40 by 30s, right? Because all my formations, if they were 40 by 30s, that would be my attack column. That would be my march column. And then squares. You know, 40 by 30s, 4 bases. But if I'm removing, I don't know yet. But if I'm removing bases, I don't want to remove a whole thing. I just want to remove one. And then I'm going to have odd numbers, right? And I don't want the line to look like that. Even though it can, it still can. But if I lose a second stand, it needs to be this guy. And then if I put him back here, I could do something like that with a march column. Yeah, so, yeah. Okay, so if I have 6 and I lose a stand, that's still a line. That's a attack column. Okay. If I have 4, that's a line. And this is where it gets muddled. That's either an attack column or a march column. And then if I ever had 3, right, I would center it up and say, well, anything where like this would be a line, and then that would be a march column. Now I could say, in my rules, I could say if you've got less than 500 men, if you got less than 5 stands, you can't form an attack column. You could just say can't be done. And so because like this, I could just say that's an attack column, no problem. But when I have 4, I'm not going to do that. Actually, this doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look horrible. And that still looks like an attack column. Maybe with my flankers out there. But I don't want people to think that that is an attack column. It kind of is, because in Napoleon's battles, that would have been a column. If you had only 3 stands. If you had 4 stands, that would be a column. And that would have been that would not be a line because they do theirs 2 figures deep as well. So that would have been a line. And then their columns would look like that. Actually, theirs, because their bases are only 2 figures wide, imagine it kind of like that. But I'm not going to do a 2-figure depth, 2-figure wide, like Napoleon's battles. Even though that would allow me to do what I'm trying to do. Right? If I did a 20 by 30, I could do 4 figures. Something to think about. But I don't want the deep bases. I want the wide bases. But on the tabletop, if this is a battalion, and I'm going to compare it to a black powder battalion. A black powder battalion is 40 millimeters per base, 6 bases, right? So let's do this. Yeah, when it comes to a line of 6 bases, that would have been a black powder unit. And when it comes to depth, you know, that That's how much space a black powder unit takes up. And if you were to form up into a column of any kind, it actually would take up all of this space and depth, right? Because it's a 40 millimeter depth, so 80 millimeters. Yeah. So comparatively, that's a black powder 3 and 3 base, where that's width, it's about a third width, and then depth, it's about half, a little bit over half depth. So what that is kind of telling me, or what it's kind of allowing for on the tabletop, is a battlefield about twice as big as a black powder battlefield. So if I had, let's use Quatre Bras as an example. If I had Quatre Bras on a 8-foot table, like a 4x8 standard piece of plywood, then with 15 millimeter, I would only need to play it on a 4x4. Actually, a 2x4, right? A 2x4 would be the same as a 4x8. And if I take my table and I take that 2x4 and I expand it to a 4x4, right, giving it more depth, then you can play the early moves of Quatre Bras, the moves where the French are just arriving or just attacking, where the Nassau and the Dutch Belgians are actually by themselves defending and not jumping straight to the afternoon like they do in the scenario book for black powder. They jump to the afternoon because they understand that at 28 millimeter battalion level, you're not going to get more than about 5 or 6 feet of depth, and at this scale would only be a 3-foot table. So if I'm able to get a 5-foot depth on a ping pong table, I'm going to be able to do the entire Quatre Bras. I'm going to be able to do the area behind Quatre Bras where there were units forming. I could do the area in front of Gemiancourt, on the other side of the river where Ney has his initial deployments. I could put the additional objectives on the table where there was like Lesser Pierpoint and Gemiancourt and there's Lesser and Greater Gemiancourt, I think, but there's like 4 or 5 different farms that could be placed on the table that you can't do in black powder because of the constraints of size. Now you could technically do it in black powder if you had a gymnasium floor, or if you played like the Greatest Battle where they did Waterloo on something like 50 tables, Well, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to play a core level game on a 4x8 and still have... So, okay, so understand that my rule set is still battalion level, but at a smaller distance scale so that I can get more units, not more units on the table, but more table on the table. Because Quatre Bras has every unit on the table, that's fine. Actually, they don't. The scenario they published only has Foy and Bachelou and Foy and Bachelou, Pyre and Hertier and the Guard Cavalry and Pyre's 2nd Cavalry, but they didn't have Jerome. They leave Jerome off because the table map that they provide doesn't have, on the left side, does not even include the Bazou Woods. It basically takes that entire portion of that battle off of the map. And Jerome, fighting his way through the Bazou Woods against the Nassau defenders, in my opinion, is one of the main reasons why the Allies were able to defend Quatre Bras as long as they were. And it's a pivotal battle, and by taking it out, you pretty much ruin Quatre Bras or bastardize it. And by not giving any room on the right, where the bridges are, and the town on the right, if you don't include that on the map, you lose the opportunity for the French player to flank around using the bridges on the right and the main road to come up that way where Bachelou is at. So I feel like 28 millimeter, if you can't play a battle like Quatre Bras in whatever rule set you're using, then your Napoleonic rule set has failed, because Quatre Bras is one of the smallest battles ever. It's one of the smallest battles in the Napoleonic period. There's Corunna Bay and there's some other small battles, but that battlefield is fairly small, and it's pretty much one corps against another corps in a tight, confined space. And if you can't put that tight, confined space on the table and allow the players to utilize the entire limited area, then your rule set has failed. And that's why I'm writing my own set of rules. I love Black Powder's mechanics. I think they're a really good set of rules. I could even play Black Powder using 15s. That's a good thing, because I'm gonna base these up, and if me and my buds want to play a game of Black Powder, we can. But I'm gonna encourage them not to. Because I'm writing my own set of rules. But until then, we can always play Black Powder. I like Black Powder. I think Black Powder is a good set of rules. There's a lot of things in Black Powder I like, But there's a lot of things in there that I don't like that slow the game down, and I'm trying to speed the game up. And I want it to be core level. I want each player, I want each side to have a core or multiple divisions, not necessarily an entire army like Waterloo. I want it to be scalable so that you can play Waterloo, but it's going to require 2 tables. You know, Napoleon's battles, it plays Waterloo very well, but that's because the units are brigades and not battalions. When you go from brigade to battalion, you're approximately dividing your troops, or you're multiplying your troops by 4 approximately. So if I took every unit that I had at Waterloo, because I played Napoleon's battles, I had every unit for Waterloo, Prussians included. And if I took that and I said, okay, we're not going to play Napoleon's battles, we're going to play Black Powder, I would have had 1/4 of the force. Would not have had the Waterloo size force. But that still was a ton of models. So, and people that play battalion scale games, in my opinion, this is just my philosophy, my vision, people that play at the battalion scale are not looking for a Waterloo experience. If they are, you've got to have a bunch of friends, and you've got to have a lot of tables, right? Like they did at The Greatest Battle, or whatever it was called. You should be able to see that on YouTube. Check it out. There's up in London, I think it was London, they had this huge showroom floor, and they lined up all these tables, and they 28mm models, and they pushed them around, and each player played his own brigade. So they had a bunch of players playing their own brigades, and then you had division generals and corps commanders and army commanders, wing commanders. You had artillery commanders and cavalry commanders. You had all this stuff, and that would have been fun. That would have been exciting. But that's not your average afternoon playing with your friends at home, right? I don't see a battalion scale game being played at the Waterloo, at the Leipzig, at those scales. I just don't see it. Quatre Bras, Corunna Bay, maybe even Wavre, some core versus core action. Absolutely. There's a lot of battles out there, a lot of them, that was one corps against one corps, or a corps with some reinforcements, because that's kind of what Quatre Bras is. It's like a corps and a half per side. That should be playable at battalion scale, but it's really not at Black Powder because of the, not because of the rules, because you can play, because we did it at NashCon. I played the scenario as pretty much as written, but the map was smaller. And did I have Nassau on the table? No. Did I have Jerome on the table? No. So Real, some people call him Riley, but it's Real, he didn't have enough, he didn't have his full complement of troops because the game limitations, they limited him to a certain amount of troops. I don't want to do that. My rules are going to be, you're able to put a corps on the table, a 4x6, a 4x6 table. You're going to fit a core on that table, and it's going to be a good-sized battle. Right? I'm going to be able to put Quatre Bras on a 4x6 and be able to do the entire battle from front to back in 15 millimeter, battalion scale. And that's what I'm excited about. And that's kind of where my philosophy is when it comes to writing these rules. Plus, I want to make it fast. I don't want it to be slow. I toyed with the idea of I roll a die and you roll a die, and we compare the dice to see what the result is. I learned that in Napoleon's battles. That has a really good effect on two things. One, you get a high plus a D10, so you have a high variety of results, because I could roll a 1, you could roll a 10, so there's 9 points of difference right there, plus modifiers, right? But if I remember right, your modifiers could never reduce you to less than 1, and your modifiers could never increase your roll higher than 10. So the best you'll get is a 9 difference. Either way, right? I kind of like that, but it slows. It does two things, right? It does three things. Two of them are positive, but it slows the game down because I have to roll a die and you have to roll a die. So we're waiting for each other to roll dice. It forces the defender or the non-phasing player to pay attention, right? So it keeps him at the table with a dice in his hands, or a die in his hands, because he never knows or doesn't know where he's being attacked. But there's a lot of things about Napoleon's battles that speed the game up, and there's a lot of things in that game that slow the game down. So I'm gonna take some things from Napoleon's battles that I like, and I'm gonna take some things from Black Powder that I like. I'm gonna take some things from Land of the Free, and believe it or not, weird, I'm gonna take some things from Battle Group that I like. Battle Group has some rules in it that I really like, mainly the command and control. But I'm going to tweak it for Napoleonics. What I really want is each player to play a division, right? So, but I want to make it not so unmanageable that one player on a side could run the entire thing of Quatre Bras. I want him to be able to have the entire core. I want him to be able to move every division without it being too bogged down. One thing Black Powder does that I'm not going to do is you pick a unit, you say what you're going to do, you roll the dice to see how many moves you get. Not going to do that. I'm going to do you pick a division, you roll the command dice, it tells you how many pips you get or how many orders you get, and then you issue orders to each battalion as you go. That's straight from Battle Group. And you do one battalion, you move and attack and shoot and do everything with it. Now what I'm kind of thinking is you move and shoot as part of the battalion's orders, and then once all the moving and shooting is done, then melee happens. And that's going to be like a mid-turn thing, maybe. Like I move and shoot, you move and shoot, and then we do melees. I think that's what's going to happen. But it might be, but see, then it's always you're reacting to my moves to get the best melees. So maybe it'll be you move and shoot, I move and shoot, melees. Maybe, I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. Because I don't want to have a unit, because I don't know if I want to do like a move and melee and then go to the next unit, a move and melee, and then the next unit, a move and melee. Because I want there to be combined arms actions. So I want there to be an opportunity for like infantry to engage another infantry unit and then have the cavalry come in and strike them on the side. So melees might just be at the end of one player's turn instead of both players. But then that's going to double up melees. That's going to be I move and shoot and melee. You move and shoot and melee. So now melee becomes twice as important. And I don't think I want to do that either. So I'm going to have to think on that. All right, guys. Well, it is after 1 o'clock. It's close to 1:30, so we're going to close this video down. There's a few other things that I need to do today. I'm going to go get my figs from outside, bring them in, and then you can see what that color looks like after prime. Okay, you can kind of see this color here. It's, I think that's a really good great coat color. It's also just a primer. So, I think it's a good primer color. Because if I want to paint them with gray greatcoats, I think it'll go on top of that color really well. If I want to paint a green greatcoat, that's going to go on top of that color really well as well. Because I don't want everybody in the same unit having the same color greatcoat. I want there to be a little bit of variety. These are going to be 3 1st battalions. So they're going to be 3 units with the eagle and their colors. They're not going to have fanions. And if I just left them like that, then they would all be kind of not unique. They would all be identical, and I don't want that. I want every unit to have a slight variation. Got to get into the boots. Got to get to the pants. Hands and faces. Yeah, these guys are going to go pretty quick. I think I'm going to paint these guys 3 or 4 days. I think I'll have them complete. And then these are the uh-oh. Uh-oh. I'm trying to remember which ones were Swiss and which ones were... Okay, these are the Swiss. Because they had the prone guys. I now and these are the Frenchies. Okay. And these were his Swiss. Yeah, because he has an officer. That's right. And a flag bearer that's has no flag. Okay. So I'm going to get on painting these. And again, my Napoleonic project is in full swing. If and when I get units painted, I'll upload videos showing you those units like I did with my 28s, and as I go. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's take a look at the comments real quick before I let you guys go. Reg, you're verbose. What are you saying here? It makes it even more entertaining. We're talking about the subtitles now. Grenadier equals Granny was here. Okay. Nice. Call it combat effectiveness. Put that in the back of my memory hole. You're talking about like the stamina, endurance that I was talking about. I think that's what I was talking about. Combat effectiveness. Yeah, maybe. It should be durability because I'm talking about wounds. Okay, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. That's basing and formations and movement is going to be my first consideration. And once I get basing, movement, and formations, command and control figured out, combat is going to be down the line. That's going to be one of the last things I worry about. Okay, what do we got here? Generally, attack columns were actually column of divisions that had the frontage of 2 companies. Thus, a unit smaller than 2 companies would not form an attack column. That's okay. So you're saying, like, my tiny units shouldn't form attack columns. I'm thinking like each base is a company, right? It's about 100 men, 120 men, something like that. So I'm thinking each of those bases represents a company. And so, yeah, I wanted to do 2 companies wide. And then just put the other companies behind it to make my attack columns. I know there's some other rule sets out there that kind of lend towards different types of formations. I'm going to do a little research on that too. There's like LaSalle, there's Empire, Chef de Battalion, but a lot of those I'm noticing are using the square bases with 4 figures, and I don't. There's one Empire. There's another. Maybe it's Old Glory. Yeah, not Old Glory. Field of Glory. Yeah, they've got. They base pretty much the same way I've done it. I'll figure it out. And we're going to be talking about this for the next few months. So, yeah. So if you got any ideas, think about it. Put it in the comments. If you have any suggestions or any links to any other game systems that I might be interested in taking a look at, I'd appreciate any of that. But don't feel obligated to do that because I might or might not look at it. Because I want to do something on my own without too much external input. You know what I mean? But I value everybody's comments. So I'm kind of a mixed bag. All right, guys. 1:30. Thanks for coming out and watching this video. I did record the final video for my my Battle Group Boot Camp. I filmed the final video of the basic rules, the engineering section. It's been recorded. I haven't edited it or uploaded it or rendered it or anything like that. It's just raw video right now. But I've already recorded it. And I'll be editing that and uploading that probably today, actually. And then once I get that uploaded, future boot camps are going to be more like advanced training, because there's the advanced section of the rule book, plus there's additional campaign books. Oh, I meant to talk about Plastic Soldier Company. Yeah, let me take a couple of minutes to talk about Plastic Soldier Company. Really good. Anita is the one that I'm dealing with there. I think she is running the show. She seems to be very passionate about her company, the Plastic Soldier Company, and I have nothing but good things to say about her and her work and her relationship with me. I think we're doing pretty good. I got another order coming in. I placed it about a week ago. She's working on fulfilling it. It should be shipped out any day now, if it hasn't already been shipped out, because I haven't checked my emails today. But I did inquire about prizes or convention support, t-shirts, banners, posters, whatever. I inquired about that for NashCon for our game. I'm running a Plastic Soldier Company game with, it's called Battle Group. It's World War II. And I'm going to be basically promoting her game there. And I inquired about getting some prize support material and stuff. And she came back, unfortunately, and said they don't really have any kind of program like that. They don't have anything for convention support, no t-shirts, no banners, no posters, no prize material or anything like that. She said she has a couple of banners that they take to trade shows when they go, but that's not really for sale or whatever, which I get that, And I was like, okay, no big deal. No worries. It was, you can't complain about free stuff, right? So I said, no worries. If you don't have it, you don't have it. So I just want to let you know there's not going to be any like prizes or free stuff or anything like that from Plastic Soldier at the convention. I'm not going to just pull a book out of my collection or miniatures out of my collection and offer it as a prize. That's not happening. The game itself should be a prize, right? The game itself is the reward. So if you come out and you want to see me and you want to play and you want to hang out and we want to play some Battle Group, do that. I'm probably going to get another order of Plastic Soldier in before I go to the convention. I got this one, but I'm probably going to get another one in. I think in my next order, I'm going to really heavily order the books, because I noticed on my site, my eBay site that is, I sell on eBay, the books are flying off the shelves. I think I'm down to one book left, right? And I just got these in a couple of weeks ago. So I think I'm gonna make an order of pretty much just books. I think. I don't know. We'll figure it out. If they continue to sell. All right. I'll let you guys go, and you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you next Wednesday, probably with more Napoleonics.